Sarah Chen stood at the window of room 3012, watching dark clouds gather over Manhattan's skyline. The private hospital suite on the 30th floor offered an unobstructed view of the approaching storm. 3 months had passed since Thomas Blackwood Geo's car accident, and Sarah had memorized every detail of his care routine. She'd heard stories from the staff about Thomas's unusual pet, a licensed eagle named Zeus he'd rescued years ago. The framed photo on his bedside table showed a younger Thomas with the majestic bird perched on his arm. Though some found it strange, his dedication to rehabilitating the injured eaglet had earned him respect among wildlife conservationists. Thunder rolled across the sky as Sarah methodically checked Thomas Jr.'s vital signs for the afternoon report. The rain began to fall, first as gentle drops against the window, then increasing in intensity with each passing minute. The wind howled around the building's corners, carrying an unusual sound, one that made Sarah pause in her work. Security had mentioned that Zeus had been restless lately at Thomas's penthouse, where a caretaker now watched over him. Lightning flashed, illuminating the dark clouds, and that's when Sarah saw it, a large shape circling the building. Her heart raced as she recognized the distinctive silhouette of an eagle. What happened next occurred so quickly that Sarah would later struggle to describe it accurately in her report. A deafening crack of thunder shook the building to its foundation, and Zeus, perhaps drawn by some inexplicable connection to his owner, crashed through the window. Glass shattered inward as the magnificent bird tumbled into the room. Immediately regaining his composure, Sarah moved to protect her patient from the falling glass. Amazed at how the eagle, despite the chaos, seemed focused solely on Thomas, the security alarm blared through the speakers, its sharp tone mixing with the howling wind, now whipping through the broken window. The nursing staff rushed into the room, responding to both the security breach and the potential risk to the patient through the chaos of people shouting and alarms blaring. Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Thomas's fingers twitched. She froze in place, her eyes fixed on his hand. Hardly daring to believe what she had just witnessed, Zeus had settled on the foot of Thomas's bed, his presence commanding yet somehow gentle. The movement was subtle but unmistakable, the first voluntary response he had shown in 92 days. Security personnel entered the room, then stopped short at the sight of the famous eagle in the midst of the commotion. Sarah's medical training took over as she began a quick neurological assessment. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she checked Thomas's vital signs and responses. The wildlife rescue team had been contacted, but Sarah noticed how calm Zeus remained, as if he'd accomplished what he'd come to do. Through the broken window, the storm continued to rage, but inside room 3012, something had changed. Sarah reached for the phone to call Dr. Reynolds and then Thomas Sayer, knowing this moment could mark a turning point. As she dialed, Zeus maintained his vigilant watch over his owner. A guardian returned to his post. Thomas Blackwood Seer sat in his penthouse office, staring at the care report from Zeus's handler on his desk. The storm had intensified outside, rain lashing against the windows with increasing fury. His phone buzzed for the third time, Sarah Chen's number flashing on the screen again. He had been avoiding calls from the hospital lately, though he faithfully read every update about both his son and Zeus, who hadn't been the same since Thomas Jr.'s accident. His mind drifted to the day Thomas Jr. had brought home the injured eaglet. Fighting for both permits and his father's approval, that had been the first time he'd seen true passion in his son's eyes. Finally answering the call, Thomas Sr. listened in disbelief as Sarah described Zeus's dramatic entrance and his son's response. His hands trembled as he recalled how he'd initially dismissed his son's dedication to wildlife rehabilitation as a distraction from the family business. The quarterly reports scattered across his desk forgotten. He grabbed his keys and rushed toward the elevator. Zeus's handler called next, confirming the eagle had indeed escaped during the storm. The normally 20-minute drive to Memorial Hospital stretched ahead of him, each red light an eternity, as he remembered every argument he'd had with his son about wasting time with that bird. The hospital's bright fluorescent lights assaulted his eyes as he burst through the entrance, his normally commanding presence softened by worry. Wildlife control experts were already on site, but had agreed to wait after learning Zeus had remained remarkably calm by Thomas Jr.'s side. Sarah quickly briefed him on the situation, explaining how Zeus's presence seemed to coincide with the first signs of improvement. Security teams worked to temporarily seal the broken window while maintaining a respectful distance from the eagle. Thomas Sr. watched in amazement as Zeus adjusted his position on the bed frame, moving closer to his son's hand. Dr. Reynolds arrived to perform an emergency assessment, working carefully around the protective bird. The neurologist's initial tests showed promising changes in brain activity, particularly when Zeus made soft vocalizations. Thomas Sr. remembered how his son had spent months teaching Zeus to be gentle, proving everyone wrong about the possibility of rehabilitating the injured raptor. Therain continued its assault on Manhattan, but inside room 3012, a deeper story of loyalty was unfolding. Personnel whispered in the hallway about the extraordinary bond between man and bird that had somehow transcended consciousness. Standing by his son's bedside, Thomas Sr. noticed another subtle movement in his son's hand, this time reaching toward Zeus. The mighty businessman felt tears well up in his eyes as he witnessed the pure devotion of his son's unlikely companion. Sarah documented every movement and response, while coordinating with hospital administration about allowing Zeus supervised visits. Through the temporarily patched window, the storm began to subside, leaving behind a profound quiet broken only by the soft sounds of medical equipment and occasional rustling of feathers. For the first time in 3 months, hope filled room 3012, brought by the most faithful of friends. Dr. Marcus Reynolds stood in the hospital administrator's office, presenting his unprecedented request for animal visitation. The meeting had been called immediately following the incident, with legal teams and medical staff gathering to discuss Zeus's future visits. Sarah Chen's detailed observations of Thomas Jr.'s neurological responses in Zeus's presence formed the backbone of their argument. The administrator, Dr. Patricia Morrison, listened intently as Reynolds explained the potential therapeutic benefits. Evidence from other cases where animal bonds had aided recovery was presented, though none quite matched this unique situation. The paperwork for Zeus's special wildlife permits was spread across the conference table, along with his perfect health records. Thomas Sr. had arrived with Thomas Jr.'s extensive documentation of Zeus's training and rehabilitation process. Legal representatives worked through liability concerns, while hospital staff developed potential protocols for the visits. The facilities team had already begun modifying the room to accommodate the unusual therapy animal. Dr. Morrison's initial skepticism began to waver as she reviewed the morning's remarkable readings from Thomas Jr.'s brain activity monitors. Sarah supervised as maintenance crews installed a special perch near Thomas Jr.'s bed, designed to Zeus's specifications. Wildlife experts had confirmed that Zeus's calm demeanor in medical settings was a result of Thomas Jr.'s careful training. The hospital's infection control team established strict hygiene protocols, adapting standard therapy animal guidelines. Thomas Jr.'s medical team was cautiously optimistic about incorporating these supervised visits into his recovery plan. Across the hall, Emma's eyes lit up when she learned her father's special friend would be allowed to visit. Jennifer stood in the doorway of her ex-husband's room, watching Zeus settle onto his new perch with surprising grace. Her initial objections to Zeus during their marriage seemed petty now as she observed the eagle's gentle attention to Thomas. The bird's presence had always highlighted the dichotomy in Thomas, ruthless in business like his father, yet capable of extraordinary patience and kindness. Memories flooded back of Thomas, spending countless hours working with Zeus, showing their daughter that dedication and love could overcome any obstacle. By evening, all necessary approvals were in place. With strict guidelines for Zeus's supervised visits established, Sarah arranged the visiting schedule to coincide with her shifts. Having been designated as the primary coordinator for this unique arrangement, hospital staff had already begun calling it the Eagle Therapy Program. Though Sarah reminded them it was a one-patient exception, Thomas Sr. watched from his usual corner as Zeus maintained his quiet vigilance, wondering if perhaps his son had understood something about loyalty and dedication that he himself was only now beginning to grasp. The rhythmic beeping of monitors provided a steady backdrop to this unusual scene of healing. Sarah noticed the first significant change during Zeus's third official visit to room 3012. The monitors showed increased brain activity whenever the eagle made his distinct greeting call, a soft chirp he used only for Thomas. Thomas Sr. sat in his usual chair, laptop abandoned as he watched his son's hand move slightly in response to Zeus's presence. The morning sun filtered through the newly reinforced windows, casting a warm glow over this unusual healing session. Dr. Reynolds had documented every response, building a compelling case for continuing the unconventional therapy. Zeus maintained his position on the specially installed perch, his attention never wavering from his human companion. Emma's scheduled visit coincided with Zeus's time slot, bringing new energy to the room's atmosphere. The 6-year-old showed no fear of the massive bird, sharing stories about her school day with both her father and Zeus. Jennifer watched from the doorway, remembering how Thomas had taught Emma to respect and understand Zeus from an early age. Hospital staff paused in their rounds to observe this extraordinary family dynamic. A young girl, her comatose father, and his eagle creating a peaceful tableau. Sarah monitored the vital signs. Noting how Thomas's reading strengthened during these dual visits, Zeus's handler, Mike Peterson, shared stories with the medical team about Thomas Jr.'s dedication to wildlife rehabilitation, the countless hours spent gaining Zeus's trust after finding him injured as a juvenile. The specialized training to help Zeus adapt to human environments. Thomas Sr. listened intently. Realizing how little he knew about this aspect of his son's life, the eagle's presence had become a bridge between father and son, revealing depths of character Thomas Sr. had previously dismissed. Emma proudly recited facts about eagles she'd learned from her father, each word painting a picture of the man behind the business facade. Dr. Reynolds arrived for his afternoon assessment. Working around Zeus with practiced ease now, the neurologist noted subtle improvements in Thomas's reflexes and brainwave patterns over the past week. Sarah continued her meticulous documentation of every response, movement, and vital sign change during Zeus's visits. The medical team had begun timing certain procedures to coincide with the eagle's presence, having noticed Thomas remained more stable during these periods. Through it all, Zeus maintained his quiet vigilance, occasionally preening or shifting position but never leaving his perch. Thomas Sr. found himself staying later each evening, watching the interaction between his son and Zeus. The mighty eagle, who could soar freely above Manhattan's skyline, chose to remain faithfully by Thomas's side during every permitted visit. Sarah prepared her end-of-shift notes, recording the day's small victories and steady improvements. Through the windows of room 3012, the city lights began to twinkle, but inside time seemed to move at its own pace. Emma had left her latest artwork, a crayon drawing of her father Zeus and herself, taped to the wall where Thomas could see it when he woke up. The morning brought unusually clear skies to Manhattan as Sarah began her early shift in room 3012. Zeus had arrived for his morning visit, accompanied by his handler Mike, settling into what had become a familiar routine. Thomas Jr.'s vital signs continued showing steady improvement, with Dr. Reynolds noting increased periods of apparent awareness. The medical team had adjusted their schedules to maximize the effectiveness of Zeus's visits. Creating a seamless integration of traditional and unconventional therapy, Sarah noticed Thomas's fingers moving more purposefully now. Especially when Zeus made his soft greeting calls, Emma sat cross-legged in the large armchair by her father's bed. Working on her homework while Zeus watched from his perch, Jennifer had begun staying in the room during these visits. Rather than waiting in the hallway, drawn by the peaceful atmosphere, Thomas Sr. arrived with his morning coffee. Having moved most of his early meetings to the hospital's family room, the transformation in the room's dynamic over the past weeks was subtle but significant. As the family found themselves gravitating toward this shared space of hope, Zeus maintained his protective watch, his presence somehow making the medical environment feel less sterile. The first word came during one of these quiet morning sessions. Barely audible above the gentle hum of medical equipment, Zeus Thomas Jr. whispered, his voice rough from months of disuse. Causing the eagle to immediately turn his head, Sarah moved quickly to check vitals, while Emma jumped up from her chair. Her homework forgotten, the room erupted in controlled chaos as medical staff responded to Sarah's alert. Dr. Reynolds arriving within minutes through it all, Zeus remained unusually still, his eyes fixed on Thomas's face. Thomas Sr. stood frozen by the window, watching as his son struggled to maintain consciousness, each small movement a victory. Jennifer gripped Emma's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face as they witnessed Thomas's eyes flutter open for the first time in months. The medical team worked efficiently around them, performing necessary assessments while respecting the gravity of the moment. Zeus made his soft greeting call again, earning another whispered response from Thomas, who seemed to be fighting to focus on his faithful friend. Dr. Reynolds completed his initial evaluation, cautiously optimistic about Thomas's sudden breakthrough. Sarah coordinated with the rest of the medical team, adjusting medication protocols and monitoring equipment. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows as the family absorbed the reality of this moment they had almost stopped hoping for. Zeus maintained his position, seemingly understanding the significance of what had just occurred. Emma squeezed past the medical staff to place her latest drawing where her father could see it, her small voice full of excitement as she explained to him everything he had missed. The physical therapy team arrived early, setting up equipment in room 3012 for Thomas Jr.'s first structured session. Zeus watched intently from his perch as therapists worked to assess Thomas's muscle condition after months of inactivity. Sarah monitored vital signs while Dr. Reynolds explained each step of the recovery process to the family. The room had been rearranged to accommodate the new equipment, creating a small rehabilitation space near the window. Thomas Sr. observed silently, his usual impatience tempered by the therapist's measured approach to his son's recovery. Thomas Jr. struggled to maintain his focus, his energy quickly depleting with each small movement attempted. Zeus made encouraging sounds from his perch, seeming to understand his human's frustration with the simplest tasks. Jennifer had brought photo albums from their marriage, hoping familiar images might help stimulate Thomas's memory. Emma sat nearby, carefully organizing the photos into a timeline as the therapists had suggested, proudly showing each one to her father. The family watched as Thomas fought to form words, each small success celebrated by the medical team. Sarah noticed how Thomas's determination increased whenever Zeus was present during therapy sessions. The eagle's calm demeanor seemed to help regulate Thomas's breathing during particularly challenging exercises. Mike, Zeus's handler, shared stories of Thomas's similar patients during Zeus's rehabilitation years ago. The therapists incorporated these moments of connection into their sessions, using Thomas's responses to Zeus as motivation. Thomas Sr. found himself drawing parallels between his son's current struggle and the dedication he'd shown in rehabilitating Zeus. Progress came in tiny increments, a stronger grip, a clearer word, a longer period of consciousness. The medical team maintained detailed records of every achievement, no matter how small it seemed. Emma decorated the room's walls with drawings of each milestone, creating a colorful timeline of recovery. Zeus remained a constant presence during permitted hours, his quiet strength seemingly lending itself to his human companion. The therapy team noted how Thomas pushed himself hardest during the eagle's visits. Dr. Reynolds adjusted recovery timelines and expectations based on Thomas's responses to the combined therapy approach. Jennifer found herself staying longer during visiting hours, drawn into the daily routine of small victories and setbacks. Thomas Sr. had permanently relocated his morning meetings to the hospital, his priorities shifting as he witnessed his son's determination. Sarah coordinated the increasingly complex schedule of medical care, family visits, and Zeus's supervised sessions. Through it all, the bond between man and eagle remained unshaken, a testament to the healing power of unconditional loyalty. Thomas Jr.'s voice grew stronger each day. Though conversations still exhausted him quickly, during one morning session, he managed to share fragments of memory about the night of his accident. Sarah sat nearby, carefully documenting each word while Zeus maintained his protective watch. The memories came in pieces, a heated argument at the office, mounting pressure about company decisions. The long drive home in the rain, Thomas Sr. listened from his corner, each detail hitting him like a physical blow as he recognized his role in his son's state. The strain of running both the family business and the wildlife rehabilitation program had taken its toll on Thomas Jr. His dedication to Zeus and other rescued birds had become a point of contention with the board of directors. Jennifer held Emma's hand as Thomas recalled their last family dinner, his voice breaking as he remembered promising to be a better father. The weight of trying to please everyone, his father, the board, his family, had pushed him to his limits that night. Zeus seemed particularly attentive as Thomas spoke of their shared history, the eagle's presence providing comfort during difficult revelations. Dr. Reynolds monitored these emotional sessions carefully, noting how Thomas's vital signs remained stable when Zeus was present. The medical team had learned to recognize signs of fatigue, gently ending conversations before Thomas became overwhelmed. Thomas Sr. began sharing his own memories, speaking openly about mistakes and regrets for the first time. The room became a space for healing not just physical wounds, but years of misunderstandings and unspoken words. Sarah observed how these honest conversations seemed to strengthen Thomas's recovery progress. Emma brought her school science project, a presentation about eagles inspired by Zeus, lifting the room's heavy atmosphere. Thomas managed his first real smile as she explained how she was teaching her class about wildlife rehabilitation. Jennifer watched their interaction, remembering the passionate man she'd married, who could spend hours teaching their daughter about nature. Zeus responded to Emma's presentation with soft chirps, causing light laughter from the medical staff. The simple joy of this moment seemed to energize Thomas more than any therapy session. As evening approached, Thomas Sr. made a surprising announcement. He had initiated the process to create a dedicated wildlife rehabilitation wing at the company. The news brought tears to Thomas Jr.'s eyes, as his father explained how Zeus had taught him the value of his son's distractions. Sarah noted the spike in Thomas's positive indicators as he processed this validation of his life's passion. Zeus shifted on his perch, his feathers catching the setting sun as another day of healing drew to a close. Through the windows, the city lights began to twinkle, but the real brightness came from the new understanding dawning in room 3012. Dr. Reynolds presented his assessment for Thomas Jr.'s transfer to the rehabilitation facility, specializing in long-term recovery. The impressive progress of the past weeks had made everyone optimistic, but the next phase would bring new challenges. Zeus's visits had been factored into the transfer plan, with the facility already making necessary accommodations. Sarah worked closely with the new medical team to ensure continuity of care, particularly regarding the unique aspects of Thomas's therapy. Thomas Sr. had personally overseen the modifications to make the facility Zeus-friendly. Jennifer found herself unexpectedly emotional about the pending transfer. The familiar routine of room 3012 having become a strange comfort, Emma helped decorate her father's new room with drawings and photos. Making sure to include plenty of pictures of Zeus, Thomas showed increasing awareness and participation in the planning discussions. His voice growing stronger as he expressed his preferences. The physical therapy team had begun more intensive sessions to prepare him for the move. Each small victory building toward their goal, Zeus seemed to sense the coming change, becoming more vocal during his visits as moving day approached. Mike worked with the new facility's staff, training them in proper protocols for handling the Eagles' visits. Thomas Sr. had surprised everyone by attending these training sessions, asking detailed questions about Zeus's care requirements. The rehabilitation center's staff listened intently as Mike explained the unique relationship between Thomas and Zeus. Understanding this was more than a simple therapy animal arrangement, Sarah compiled detailed records of Thomas's responses during Zeus's visits. Creating a comprehensive guide for the new care team, the data clearly showed improved recovery rates during and after the Eagles' presence. Supporting their decision to continue this unconventional therapy, Thomas worked harder in physical therapy when Zeus was present. Pushing through exhaustion with determination, the medical team documented every aspect of this remarkable partnership. Recognizing its potential significance for future cases, Thomas Jr. maintained his focus on recovery. Motivated by the prospect of eventually returning to his wildlife rehabilitation work, Zeus watched from his perch as physical therapists guided Thomas through increasingly challenging exercises. His presence a constant encouragement, Jennifer found herself reconsidering past judgments as she witnessed the profound impact of this unexpected bond. Emma spent her visits sharing plans for future adventures with her father and Zeus, her optimism infectious to everyone in room 3012. The morning of the transfer arrived with perfect weather, allowing Zeus to accompany the medical convoy to the rehabilitation facility. Thomas Jr. sat upright in his wheelchair for the first time, watching Manhattan's skyline from room 3012 one last time. Sarah supervised the final preparations, ensuring all medical equipment was properly secured for transport. The past weeks had transformed not just Thomas's condition, but the entire family dynamic as well. Zeus perched on his travel stand near the wheelchair, surprisingly calm despite the bustling activity around him. Emma had decorated her father's wheelchair with colorful streamers, turning the serious medical procedure into something more celebratory. Jennifer helped gather the personal items that had accumulated over the months, photos, drawings, and small tokens of encouragement. Thomas Sr. managed the logistics with unexpected attention to detail. Especially regarding Zeus's accommodation during the transfer, the medical team worked efficiently. Their movements practiced and precise while maintaining a positive atmosphere. This wasn't goodbye, but rather the next step in Thomas's journey to recovery. The rehabilitation facility, located in a quieter part of the city, had prepared a special suite that combined medical necessities with elements from Thomas's home. Zeus's new perch had been positioned perfectly near large windows, overlooking a small garden. Meeting both safety and comfort requirements, Thomas showed more animation than usual during the transfer. Perhaps energized by the change of environment, the new medical team welcomed them warmly, already familiar with the unique aspects of Thomas's case through Sarah's detailed briefings. Thomas Sr. had hired additional wildlife care specialists to assist Mike with Zeus's care at the new location. The facility's staff watched in amazement as Zeus calmly settled into his new surroundings. Maintaining his protective watch over Thomas, physical therapists began their initial assessment while Zeus observed from his perch, his presence helping to ease Thomas's anxiety about the change. Jennifer noticed how the new environment felt less clinical, more conducive to healing and family visits. Sarah completed her final handover to the new medical team. Ensuring they understood every aspect of Thomas's care, Emma explored the facility's family areas. Already planning where to place her latest artwork, the room filled with natural light as Zeus made his familiar greeting call. Seeming to approve of the new arrangement, Thomas reached for his father's hand as they watched the sun setting through the large windows. Both men changed by the events of the past months. This new chapter brought fresh hope and possibilities for recovery. The rehabilitation facility's routine quickly took shape around Thomas Jr.'s unique needs and Zeus's scheduled visits. Morning therapy sessions were timed to coincide with Zeus's presence, taking advantage of Thomas's increased motivation during these periods. Physical therapists reported steady progress as Thomas worked to regain his strength and mobility. Sarah visited regularly, maintaining her connection with the case while training the new staff in the specialized care protocols. The facility's garden had become a favorite spot for family visits. Weather permitting, Thomas Sr. had transformed a section of Blackwood Tower's ground floor into a wildlife rehabilitation center. Consulting with experts to ensure proper facilities, he spent mornings at the rehabilitation facility with his son before heading to oversee the construction progress. Jennifer noticed the change in her ex-husband's demeanor during their overlapping visits, his former corporate intensity softened by genuine engagement. Emma proudly shared updates about the new wildlife center with her classmates, her father's passion for rehabilitation work now becoming part of her own identity. Zeus adapted perfectly to the new environment, his calm presence becoming a source of fascination for other patients. Mike conducted educational sessions for the facility's staff, sharing his knowledge about raptor rehabilitation and care. Thomas found his voice growing stronger as he joined these sessions, sharing stories about Zeus's rescue and training. The medical team documented how these interactions stimulated cognitive improvement and emotional well-being. Other patients' families often gathered to watch Zeus's visits, inspired by the unique bond between man and bird. Thomas's recovery accelerated as he pushed himself harder in physical therapy, determined to return to his wildlife work. Each small victory was celebrated by the growing community of supporters at the facility. Staff, patients and families alike, Zeus remained a constant presence during approved visiting hours, his behavior impeccable despite the increasing attention. Jennifer began bringing her camera to document the progress, capturing moments that would later become part of a larger story about recovery and healing. Dr. Reynolds's latest assessment suggested Thomas might be ready for day trips outside the facility within a few months. This news energized everyone, especially Thomas, who immediately began planning visits to the new wildlife center. Sarah coordinated with the medical team to establish protocols for these future excursions, ensuring all safety measures would be in place. Zeus seemed to sense the excitement, his gentle interactions with Thomas becoming more playful during their sessions. The sunset painted the garden in golden hues as Thomas shared his plans with Emma, his voice strong with purpose and hope. The first day trip to Blackwood Tower's new wildlife rehabilitation center marked a significant milestone in Thomas's recovery. Doctors monitored his vital signs closely as he toured the facility from his wheelchair, Zeus following overhead from specially installed perches. Thomas Sr. watched proudly as his son offered expert feedback on the facility's design, his voice growing stronger with each suggestion. Emma skipped alongside, acting as an enthusiastic tour guide and pointing out features she'd helped design. The medical team noted how this engagement seemed to energize Thomas more than any therapy session. Jennifer arrived with her camera to document the visit, capturing the moment Thomas stood for the first time using parallel bars. Zeus maintained his position nearby, occasionally making soft, encouraging sounds that seemed to give Thomas extra determination. The physical therapy team supervised carefully as Thomas took his first shaky steps, his face beading with sweat, but eyes fixed with determination. Staff members and construction workers paused their activities to witness this powerful moment. Thomas Sr. found himself gripping the back of a chair, his knuckles white with tension as he watched his son push through this challenge. The Wildlife Center's design incorporated elements from Thomas's original rehabilitation work. Expanded to accommodate more species, Thomas spent time explaining his rehabilitation philosophy to the newly hired staff. His expertise evident despite his physical limitations, Mike brought in several of the center's first rescue cases. Allowing Thomas to participate in their assessment, Zeus watched these interactions from his perch. Seemingly proud as his human reconnected with their shared passion, the medical team documented every aspect of Thomas's response to these activities. Noting significant improvements in his cognitive engagement, Emma's class had organized a surprise visit to learn about wildlife rehabilitation. Their excited voices filling the center with energy, Thomas found himself teaching again, sharing his knowledge about raptor rehabilitation while Zeus demonstrated various behaviors. Jennifer watched from behind her camera lens, capturing the sparkle that had returned to her ex-husband's eyes. The students listened intently as Thomas explained how he had rescued Zeus, his story punctuated by the eagle's gentle responses. Even Thomas Sr. joined the impromptu lesson, surprising everyone with his newly acquired knowledge about wildlife care. By late afternoon, though physically exhausted, Thomas radiated satisfaction from the day's achievements. The medical team prepared for the return journey to the rehabilitation facility, pleased with his progress, but careful not to overextend him. Zeus made one final flight demonstration for the departing students, landing perfectly on his perch near Thomas. Sarah helped coordinate the transition back, noting how this experience had shifted something fundamental in Thomas's recovery. As the sun began to set, Thomas took one last look at the center, his dream finally taking physical form with an unexpected ally in his father. The rehabilitation facility's medical team met to discuss Thomas's accelerated progress since his first day trip. His physical strength had improved significantly, allowing for longer periods of supervised walking and standing. Zeus's presence during therapy sessions continued to provide unique motivation, his calm demeanor helping Thomas maintain focus. Dr. Reynolds presented updated recovery projections, suggesting Thomas might be ready for partial home care within weeks. Sarah attended these meetings regularly, her experience with the case providing valuable insight into Thomas's needs and capabilities. Jennifer requested a private conversation with Thomas, bringing documents that surprised everyone, paperwork to revisit their custody arrangement. Emma's increased involvement in her father's wildlife work had sparked positive changes in their family dynamic. Thomas listened intently as Jennifer explained her desire to create a more flexible schedule once he returned home. Zeus watched from his perch as the former couple discussed their daughter's future, their conversation marked by newfound understanding. The medical staff noted Thomas's stable emotional state during this potentially stressful discussion. Thomas Sr. introduced the newly hired director of the Wildlife Center, arranging for consultation sessions with Thomas during his recovery. These professional interactions helped restore Thomas's confidence in his expertise, despite his physical limitations. The center's progress reports showed successful implementation of Thomas's rehabilitation methods. Validating his life's work, Zeus demonstrated trained behaviors for the new staff, showcasing the results of Thomas's patient teaching approach. Emma proudly shared her growing knowledge, already showing signs of following in her father's footsteps. Physical therapy sessions now included practical exercises, mimicking the movements Thomas would need for wildlife care. The medical team carefully monitored these specialized activities, ensuring they supported his overall recovery. Zeus participated in these sessions, allowing Thomas to practice limited handling techniques under supervision. Jennifer documented these moments, building a visual record of his journey back to his passion. The rehabilitation facility's staff noted how this focused goal setting improved Thomas's motivation and progress. Sarah coordinated with home care specialists to begin preparing Thomas's apartment for his eventual return. The space would need modifications to accommodate both his recovery needs and Zeus's visits. Thomas Sr. personally oversaw these renovations, ensuring every detail met both medical and wildlife care requirements. Emma helped design her father's home office, insisting on space for her own small desk near his. Through it all, Zeus remained a constant presence, his quiet strength supporting each new step in Thomas's journey toward independence. The day of Thomas's return home arrived with perfect autumn weather, ideal for Zeus's first flight to the modified penthouse apartment. Home care staff had prepared everything according to Sarah's detailed instructions, creating a space that balanced medical needs with comfort. Thomas walked through his front door using a cane, Zeus following to inspect his new perching areas throughout the apartment. Emma had decorated the space with welcome home signs and her latest wildlife drawings, transforming the once sterile penthouse into a warm family space. Jennifer helped arrange photos chronicling their journey, from Zeus's rescue to Thomas's recovery. Thomas Sr. arrived with news that would once again reshape their family's future. He was stepping back as CEO to co-direct the Wildlife Center with his son. The announcement left Thomas speechless, understanding the magnitude of his father's transformation. Zeus made his signature greeting call. As if approving this change in the family dynamic, Emma hugged her grandfather tightly. While Jennifer captured the moment on camera, the home care team watched this family scene unfold, noting Thomas's steady emotional state. Despite the momentous changes, the penthouse's new layout included a small medical station designed to be unobtrusive yet functional. Sarah trained the home care staff in Thomas's specific needs, emphasizing the importance of maintaining Zeus's visiting schedule. Physical therapy equipment had been integrated naturally into the living space, allowing Thomas to continue his exercises comfortably. Thomas Sr. had ensured the apartment's large balcony was properly equipped for Zeus, creating a private outdoor space for their continued work together. The medical team completed their final safety checks as the family settled into this new chapter. Emma proudly showed everyone her special corner in Thomas's home office, where she planned to do her homework during visits. Jennifer discussed their new custody schedule, which now included time for Emma to participate in wildlife center activities. Zeus explored his new territory, while Mike explained the modified protocols for home visits to the care team. Thomas moved carefully through his apartment, each step representing months of determined rehabilitation work. The autumn sunlight streamed through the large windows, highlighting the beginning of this new phase in their lives. The first evening at home brought a sense of peace as Thomas sat in his favorite chair, watching the sunset with Zeus nearby. Sarah completed her handover to the home care team, knowing her most unusual case was reaching a successful conclusion. Thomas Sr. shared renovation plans for the Wildlife Center's next phase, now incorporating suggestions from both father and son. Emma curled up with a book about eagles, her presence completing this scene of healing and renewal. Through the windows, the city lights began to twinkle, but the real brightness came from the hope that filled the penthouse. 6 months after returning home, Thomas stood at the podium during the official opening ceremony of the Blackwood Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Zeus perched regally beside him, their presence together drawing attention from local media and wildlife conservation groups. Thomas Sr. beamed with pride as his son delivered a passionate speech about second chances, both for injured wildlife and human relationships. Emma sat in the front row between her parents, clutching a ribbon-cutting ceremony program she had helped design. Sarah, attending as a special guest, marveled at how far her former patient had come since those first difficult days in room 3012. The Rehabilitation Center had already gained recognition for its innovative approach to wildlife care and family involvement. Thomas's story of recovery, intertwined with Zeus's unwavering loyalty, had inspired other facilities to consider similar programs. Jennifer found herself increasingly involved in documenting the center's success stories, her photography capturing the healing journey of both animals and their caregivers. Mike had taken on the role of head trainer, teaching new staff the methods he had learned through years of working with Thomas and Zeus. The medical team from the rehabilitation facility attended the ceremony, their presence a reminder of the challenging journey that led to this moment. Thomas Jr. demonstrated remarkable stamina throughout the event, showing barely a trace of his previous condition. His physical therapy team watched proudly as he moved confidently around the facility, introducing donors to the various rehabilitation programs. Zeus followed his movements from strategically placed perches, their bond now a symbol of the center's mission. Emma proudly led tours for other children, sharing her growing expertise in wildlife rehabilitation. Thomas Sr. had discovered a new passion in his semi-retirement, often spending afternoons learning about the different species in their care. The ceremony included a special demonstration of rehabilitation techniques, with Zeus playing a central role. Thomas worked seamlessly with his eagle partner, their years of trust evident in every interaction. Jennifer captured the perfect moment when Zeus spread his wings in the sunlight, symbolizing freedom and recovery for all present. The audience watched in amazement as Thomas explained how his own healing journey had paralleled his early work with Zeus. Medical professionals in attendance took notes, recognizing the potential therapeutic applications of wildlife interaction. As evening approached, the family gathered in Thomas's office at the center, surrounded by photos of their journey. Zeus settled on his favorite indoor perch, surveying his expanded family with apparent satisfaction. Emma shared her dreams of becoming a wildlife veterinarian, her parents exchanging knowing smiles at her determination. Thomas Sr. discussed future expansion plans, now fully embracing his son's vision for wildlife conservation. Sarah bid farewell to the family she had come to know so well, knowing her most remarkable patient had found his way back not just to health, but to his true purpose. 1 year after the accident, Room 3012 at Memorial Hospital had been transformed into a unique therapy space. Thomas Jr. stood at the familiar window, now speaking to a group of medical professionals about the integration of animal therapy in recovery programs. Zeus perched regally nearby, a living testament to the power of unconditional bonds in healing. Sarah sat among the audience, remembering the dramatic night when an eagle crashed through these same windows. Changing so many lives, the room that had once witnessed his struggle for survival now served as a beacon of hope for others facing similar challenges. Emma's latest school project sat proudly displayed on the conference table, a detailed presentation about the successful rehabilitation programs at the Blackwood Center. Thomas Sr. watched his granddaughter confidently answer questions about wildlife care, recognizing the same passion that had once driven him to build his business empire. Jennifer captured photographs for the center's upcoming publication, documenting the full-circle moment of their return to Room 3012. The medical staff who had cared for Thomas during those critical months joined the gathering. Sharing their perspectives on his extraordinary recovery, Thomas's presentation included data from the first year of the Blackwood Center's operations, showing impressive success rates in both wildlife rehabilitation and therapeutic programs. Zeus demonstrated various training techniques, his calm demeanor helping to illustrate the potential of animal-assisted therapy. Mike shared insights about adapting their methods for different species and situations, while Thomas explained how his own recovery had inspired new approaches to rehabilitation. The audience of medical professionals and therapy specialists took careful notes. Recognizing the groundbreaking nature of their work, the family had found a new rhythm, their lives enriched by shared purpose and understanding. Thomas split his time between corporate responsibilities and wildlife rehabilitation, finding joy in balancing both worlds. Emma spent afternoons at the center after school, absorbing knowledge from every staff member and developing her own special way with injured animals. Jennifer and Thomas had discovered a renewed friendship through their shared commitment to Emma's involvement in wildlife conservation. Thomas Sr. had become a regular fixture at the center, his business acumen now serving to expand their rehabilitation programs. As the presentation concluded, Thomas and Zeus stood together at the window where their journey had resumed one stormy night. Sarah approached them, remembering the long hours of uncertainty and the small victories that had led to this moment. Through the glass, they could see the Blackwood Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in the distance, its modern facilities gleaming in the afternoon sun. Emma joined them, slipping her small hand into her father's as Zeus made his gentle greeting call. The room that had once contained their greatest challenges now witnessed their triumph, a story of healing that had transcended both species and expectations.